Hello, and welcome to the Animal Control Report with your hosts,
Ashlee Bishop.
Hello. I'm Dan Hillinger. Hello, Bishop.
Are you British now?
Hello. I don't know. I'm drinking coffee today, so I'm more American than coffee.
Wow.
So maybe I can go back to tea.
Yeah.
There's something I wanted to tell you off script, and I can't recall. Anyway, go to our website, check it out, keepithumane.com. Check out the podcast network. That's keepithumane.com/podcast network. We have a lot of stuff coming in 2024, so check all that out. Check out our Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I always mess that T one up, that social media T. What's life like in Bishop World?
Healing and recovering.
You look good, though. And for those of you that want to see her, you can actually watch these on Spotify or YouTube now. So the video is uploaded to Spotify as well.
Huh. I'll have to check that out. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, but you look a lot better than last time I saw you.
Hey, you didn't even see me at my worst. I look like a full stroke patient. So
wow.
I still have a lot of paralysis in my face.
Oh wow. I thought you can't tell it all, but you must be able to feel it.
You can if you actually aren't in camera land and can watch me blink, because my husband keeps equating me. Have you ever seen the movie Sing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the lizard lady.
Yeah, I know exactly where he's going with that. What is she? Is she an alligator? What is she? What
I don't know if she's an
character
alligator or she can't be, because I think she licks her own eye, and alligators don't do that.
She might be a reptile. I'm going to look it
up. My husband keeps saying he's waiting for me to lick my eye, because one does close slower than the other.
This is fantastic. Well, we have a great show today. We're going to introduce our guest here in a little bit. As you know, the Best Friends Animal Society has been on this program probably more than any other repeats, either tied or more than. And I really appreciate them just taking the time to come on and talk about their programs. And we haven't been maybe the biggest supporters of the language that they use. And I really appreciate that they haven't said, you know what, we're not going to talk to you anymore about any of this stuff. So I'm excited to get them on. But before we do that, while we were talking offline, our guest kind of brought something up. And did I ever talk about the cruise that we went on recently?
No.
No. I've never been on a cruise before in my life. And I got this idea this last year to take my kids on a cruise. And so we went on a cruise down to Mexico from Long Beach. And it was probably the best time that I've ever had in my life. And I know that's somewhat arbitrary in aspects of there's a lot of best times. But for a vacation, to hit these little islands that we did and hit a piece of Mexico and all that stuff, it was incredible. And then just being on this boat, I didn't know what to expect. And it was the most surreal feeling that I've ever experienced, because you're traveling in a hotel that has a casino. It's insane. Have you ever been on a cruise?
No. I'm actually a little afraid to go on cruises, just because there's a lot of boats getting lost or deep-seated illnesses and stuff.
Okay, you go to the grocery store?
I understand that. I understand it's an unrealistic fear.
Well, but it is a fear. And a lot of people have it. And for a long time, I'll be honest, I was like, I'm never going on a cruise. But, midlife crisis, I'm like, let's try something new. And we really like it. So I want to segue into introducing our guest, because we're about to cruise this program. Tawny Hammond, who is the Director of No-Kill Advancement with Best Friends Animal Society. Tawny, you told us you were a captain, and I need to know more about how long you've been working on boats, being a captain. Tell me everything, because I love these things.
Thanks. First of all, thank you both for having me on your show, on your podcast.
Absolutely.
I think it's quite an honor, and I'm just really excited to be here. I'm a licensed captain with the Coast Guard. I have two big vessels up here in Grand Traverse County in Michigan and Traverse City. I have a 149 passenger tour boat, and then I have an 18 passenger schooner, custom built Thomas Colvin schooner, and they're both commercial crafts, obviously. And I've been, I grew up north of Chicago, so right there by Lake Michigan, and Traverse City's on Lake Michigan, on the Grand Traverse Bay. My grandfather built boats in Wisconsin and then in Florida. That was his avocation, not his vocation. He was a public relations man. And then my other grandparents also had boats and were always around water. And just my whole life, it's been part of my life. And in my early life, I flew small planes. And, haven't done that for a long time. I'd have to go back to flight school completely to do it right and be safe. It's been 15, 20 years since I've done that. But just decided to get my captain's license. I just thought it was, a challenge and something that I would enjoy. And also owning these big vessels, you really do need to have your own credentials because you work really closely with the Coast Guard on the mariner programs and rig inspections. And, it's quite rigorous when you're taking paid passengers out on your vessel. There's really high standards.
Do you get up into Canada quite a bit, or do you stay in the U.S. the whole time?
We stay here.
Okay.
Yeah, we offer day. All our excursions are day excursions, and the bay is really big here. It's about 35, almost 40 miles long, and if you're going about 8 knots,
okay,
you can't really go very far. Plus, you're sailing with the schooner.
Okay.
With the tour boat, you obviously could go further if you wanted to. So to give you an idea of space and time, it would take us 2.5 hours to drive from Traverse City to Mackinac Island. By vessel, it takes 11 hours.
What?
Wow.
So you're moving at a different speed on the water, and to safely do that, what the engine can handle, what the vessel can handle. But she's also 57-ton gross and 47 or little under 40 for net. So, it's a big vessel.
This is fascinating. I kind of want to skip all the best friend stuff and just talk about boats. I'm telling you, I fell in love with it, Tawny. Like I am already in plans of booking our next cruise. It's absolutely an incredible. Yeah. It's just a neat feel. Like to wake up on the water, it's insane.
It is. Yeah, it is. I think it's magical. I think, I also have an equine background, and I feel that working with sailing and vessels, there's the spiritual healing aspect that I also found around horses. You have to be really centered and present. And you sometimes, it's just like as soon as we put our sails up, you can feel on the vessel this collective letting go. The tensions, the worries, letting go. And you get that feeling. And that's why equine therapy is so powerful.
Sure.
So two similar feelings if people are wondering what it's like. So very therapeutic. And I think people are looking for those beautiful moments in their life. So I'm not surprised you're already planning another excursion on the water.
And the thing about the horses and like boats, that's like the foundation of this country. Like everything was built with the power of horses, and everything got here from the ability
boats.
Of the boat. So
now we'd be speaking with a British accent if it wasn't for this.
Let's jump in to some of the stuff. Before we do, I want to make sure that if Paula listens to the show, Paula, she's the rep down in Texas for Best Friends. I just want to send her a shout out and also apologize to her for maybe some of the uncomfortableness that I made her feel at our presentation or at my presentation at TACA. So I just wanted to publicly apologize to Paula and let her know that I thought we had some great conversations, and I heard that she was a little bit upset. So I just wanted to take that time. Hopefully she's listening. And if she ever wants to talk and chat about it, obviously my number's in the show notes. She can reach out, text, email, whatever, call me. I'm always happy to have that conversation. So just wanted to
she will. She's an international champion, right? She holds international records for powerlifting.
I believe it. That's why I'm apologizing.
That makes sense.
Because I know if she wanted to, she could have taken care of business. Again, not to air too much of our laundry, but at the end of the day, like I know that the presentation that I went in and I knew that it was going to be somewhat controversial, and I think she was amazing prior to the topic. Like, we had some great conversations, and she was great after, but I just heard some things through some, mutual acquaintances and friends. And I just wanted to make sure that hopefully she's listening and can hear that. So,
well, that's very gracious and big of you. The thing about this, and I know we're going to get into this in our conversation today, there's a lot of feels. We all feel deeply, and we're very passionate, and we care deeply. So we don't do anything superficially, do we?
Mm-mm.
We're like all in.
No.
It's true.
Yeah.
Right? A lot at stake. We're the voices for the voiceless. So we run deep, and but that's kind of you. I'll make sure she listens.
Cool. Thank you. Bishop, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I think based on the topics that we had sent out to Tawny, I think we're going to just hit the first one because it's the end of the year. And so thinking ahead to what is coming forward towards us, Best Friends has this, they have a goal for no kill by 2025. And we're a year away at this point. So what does that goal look like right now? Like, what are the results of it? And what happens if you don't meet that goal?
Yeah, we don't think about that too much. We really have like eyes forward, shoulder to the till, while working as hard as we can. I think, and some of the pre-questions you sent me kind of relate to this too. I think it's aspirational. It's what we want to achieve. And I think setting this, this bold at the time, and you could even say now, outrageous, like this far reaching goal, was purposeful. That's why Julie Castle, our CEO, did it in 2016. And I think, for us, every life matters. And so look what we've done in our nation. We're about 17 million animals being killed in shelters in the 84 approximately about. And now we're less than 400,000. And we're not trying to end euthanasia, and we're not trying to create unsafe communities. You have to humanely end a dog's life. It's unpredictable, unpreventable, and unprovoked, uninterruptible aggressions to a human. You have to humanely end that dog's life. And then, or an animal that there's no hope for recovery. It's suffering, and euthanasia is absolutely appropriate. So we're not trying to end euthanasia. We're talking about the unnecessary, premature ending of a life. For us, it's about finding solutions, and that's all we're thinking about. Best Friends, I didn't come up in the Best Friends culture. I've been with the organization 6 years. I was a municipal employee in park services for 25 years. I ended my municipal career in animal services. So when I came to Best Friends and I started working for Best Friends, for me to understand why we do what we do and how we do what we do, I look back to the lives of the founders they made something out of nothing. They would feed the animals ate before they would eat. Just the whole story, if you visit the sanctuary, learn about the founders that created Best Friends and created this no-kill sanctuary. It's just nothing short of amazing, and it's very inspirational to me. It really powers me that the impossible can be done.
So, is there any talk of their religious cult type of start? That, I mean, there's some. I don't know if it's true or if it's rumors, but if you do some digging, there's allegations that it started off as some sort of a religious cult, and then it turned into the animal sanctuary that we know now. Is that true, or is that all just farce?
Well, there's no talk of that. That's not part of our mission at all. Best Friends was founded in '84. What happened prior to that? I think let's think about it. The '60s and '70s. What was going on in the world?
LSD, there was a lot, and unprotected sex.
There was. Well, there's that. No, the '60s and '70s were a time of seeking and people doing spiritual seeking. The founders, as I've gotten to know them, and I've had the privilege of getting to know the ones that are still here with us in this life, on this planet, physically, artists, business people. this really eclectic background of humans that were friends, and that were seekers in this world. And one of the things that was really important to them was when they had pets, they saw animals losing their lives where they lived, and the more they learned about the whole between LA and Las Vegas and that whole area on the western side of the country, it really, really troubled them, and they put all their collective resources into doing something about it. So that's where my focus is.
No, I appreciate it. And obviously we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. I think it's important that the structure's there. I was just curious because it is talked about. And again, it's not something that we really either have to continue to talk about. I wanted to, I guess my question was, since we were talking about the history, I was curious if it mentioned that, like if I came out to Kanab and visited the sanctuary, there's probably no mention of it.
We're focused on the Best Friends Animal Society.
Perfect.
And that's what we're about. That's what our mission is about. I think people have interesting histories. I think people, all of us, like, if you look back at our lives and who we were and how we reinvented ourselves and discovered ourselves, the metamorphosis and the evolution, I don't want anybody looking at my past and saying, well, when you were 18, you did this. I mean, like, what am I now here and today? Who am I? And I think that it's natural for people to have these, to want to know about that. What I don't like is when it's meant to discredit, because...
And I think that's what as I do my digging, as I do research, and I don't know anything about it, I don't have that history. It could have been somebody that was involved with that a long time ago. But I think it is done in a way that is to bring negativity towards it. As you said, Tawny, I think a lot of us, if not all of us, have a past. And like, obviously I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in just generally in life if I didn't have certain past transgressions or the ability to battle through adversity and find my true purpose. Like, what is my life's work? And it sounds like regardless, again, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, regardless, I think the founders found what their life's work was, and it's to help people and help animals. And that's the goal. And so as we move forward,
can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
And I always said, I don't want to be judged by what I did when I was 16 or 18. I just want to clarify. I think from what little I know, these were amazing human beings with big hearts, big spirits, big souls that moved through life as seekers, wanting to create a better world. And I don't know all of the details because it really wasn't important or not relevant to what I was about professionally.
Sure.
But the people that I've come to know are nothing short of amazing. It makes me sad. We just lost Faith Maloney, who was just one of the founders, one of an amazing human being. And I had the privilege and honor of knowing her. And as some of them pass over, it makes me really sad because getting to know them and see what they've created is amazing. So I just don't have like a fixation or a fascination with who they were before Best Friends. And I don't think it was nefarious or bad at all. Like, in fact, I don't know very much about it except that they were seekers. And I think I'm a seeker. So like that resonates with me. I've studied Eastern religions. I was raised in Christianity in a Jewish community. I'm a Baha'i. I have Native American heritage. So like, I get it. I dig it.
If we could do another program on quantum entanglement, because I love talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to get into energy and matter and carbon and all that stuff, I would love to do that at some other time. Maybe, you know what? Maybe I can come up and we can get on your ship and I could sit in the co-captain's chair and we can just talk, because I'm sure you got a sailor's mouth too, Tawny. So off air, we can have some fun with it. I'm sure you got some jokes in there.
Dan, then you won't be that far from me either.
I know. I'm only coming though in the nice weather time. So.
That's fair. I do have a follow-up question to this though.
Sure.
So if I can step in, Dan. I had heard through a reputable source that you guys were looking at changing the language. I mean, if you know anything about Dan and I in the show, our big thing is we dislike the language. We love what you do. We love what the programs provide. We dislike the language. And I had heard from a little birdie that there was a possibility of some change of that. Is that true?
It hasn't reached my ears.
Okay.
And I just came into the director's position of no kill advancement in October. Okay. So I guess that would mean a title change too, right?
yeah. That would be. We can get into some of that later. I wanted to talk about the acronym SMART at some point, and I just wanted to talk about why that language is divisive. And I'm not just saying that from my perspective. I'm saying that from a very large collective of individuals, not just in our industry, but collective of individuals that I've met in certain realms, and we have conversations. So, but again, that's for later. I don't want to get into that right now. I really want to focus on, because I think we started off in kind of like a place where I didn't even expect to go, and so I'm glad we can have these discussions and move on from it. In your specific role, the no kill advancement, I know we've had Scott Giacopo on, we've had Brent Tollner on in different roles within Best Friends. What do you do specifically, and then what programs? I want to know what programs like you kind of oversee, and then I want to also jump into my favorite topic, and that's access to care, underserved communities. But I'm curious what you currently do and how that affects the animals in our communities.
Yeah, we do a lot that people aren't aware of. We have, when you look at animal welfare organizations in the country, we're, as you know, we're focused on ending the killing of dogs and cats in shelters. That's our mission. But when we're working with people, it's the totality of the equation of what we meet people where they're at. So when we're working with communities, it's not a one size fits all. That community is going to have different challenges, different barriers, different politics. That's why we're not yet a discipline. Because if your house catches on fire, Ashlee, and your house catches on fire, Daniel, my house catches on fire, the fire department shows up with the same equipment, the same technology, the same training. They don't say, well, we can't bring people out in the basement because we might die or get hurt in one county or city. And then another county or city is like, hell no, we're going to bring everybody out. There's a philosophy, there's a technology, there's consistency. But with animal services, with cities and counties around the country, it's like, it depends on who's the mayor, depends on the commission and the council. It depends on if somebody's been in charge for 20 years and they're stuck in the 80s and they're thinking. So we go into a community and we help people figure out what are the challenges to saving more lives. Do lots of grants. Community cat programming is important to us. Trap, neuter, vaccinate. We added the V in there. So
sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so the thing about dogs and cats, losing their lives prematurely, so they're not sick and suffering, and they're not a danger to the community, is that if you look at it statistically, it's most always in counties that are having social vulnerability issues, access to care. They don't have veterinarians around where they live, or if they do, they can't afford them. There's housing insecurity. There's food scarcity, poverty being high. So we can't come at this just saying, oh, we're just going to save dogs and cats' lives. It's really, too, about social justice and people. And now we can't solve for a shortage of veterinarians, and we can't solve poverty.
But you kind of can, and that's my issue, right? Is we use this language, save them all, right? We use this language, no kill, and we have programs. But where is the program, right, to offer scholarships to veterinarians in our communities that may not have access to go to school? Like if Best Friends has the money, you have over 120 million, right, in the bank. You could create these programs in these underserved communities to entice children of our future to get into this shelter, because we need that. And that's where my brain goes to today's problem is we can play with the backside of it all the time, however we want to do it. We can go and say, if we, have a 90% live release rate, or if we transport this animal to this shelter, or if we do X, Y, and Z. But if we don't stop the animals coming in, it's always going to be an arbitrary outcome. We're always going to have numbers that are going to fluctuate over 90%, right? Or under 90% live release rate, however you want to define it. And that's where I want to see more of our programs go. And I wish I had that capital where I could invest in the communities. Because I'll tell you what, that would be my first target would be communities that don't have access to care, figuring out how to get involved in the One Health programs, right? Providing these resources, not playing this shell game on the back end, trying to make these numbers work. That's where it bothers me.
Well, we don't look at it as a shell game. We're helping them build. We help communities. We have mentor programs, in-bed programs, extensive. We're organized regionally around the country. We have boots on the ground staff that embed and work with the community, work with animal services and the animal shelter and animal control on solving for the problems that they're dealing with. And we are thinking about the long game. I mean, we do believe wholeheartedly that spay-neuter is an important tool in the toolkit and access to care. One thing I wanted to say that I think that's kind of, this is kind of a complex topic in that, this whole idea that government entities are the depository for pets that are lost or pets that aren't wanted, and now we're saying that access to care is also our responsibility. What I believe is that it's done collaboratively. Oh, look at that! Done collaboratively with the community, the government entity, and the nonprofits, and solving some of these wicked problems that you've referred to. Because one organization can't do it by themselves, but collectively working together, we can solve some of these wicked problems that are rooted with social injustices, and social situations. But we invest heavily in individual communities, that are untangling that knot that's knotted up. Like, how are animals just like pouring in? It's like a math problem.
So when you get into these communities,
life outcomes,
are we that's what I want to understand is some of the programs. So are we offering like vouchers for the community to get their animals fixed? Are we offering funding? So for Bishop and I can give an example. Like, there may be somebody that can't afford access to care, and it's technically a criminal violation because of negligence, right? However, instead of going the criminal route, we could offer possible resources to ensure that their animal stays in the home. Is that certain programs that Best Friends offers?
We help the organization, the community figure it out. And we do offer grants, but we help them figure it out. We don't come in and fix it for them, because then when you leave, you've given them money and you've paid for things, but there's nothing set up that where they're going to be operating, where they've got a friends group, they've got a foundation, they've got donors. Maybe we're one of them, but it's like that whole thing, give them a fish, he eats for a day, teach them to fish. It's really about sustainability. I mean, there's hundreds of communities, thousands of communities around the country, and the goal is for people to be able to solve their own issues, the counties and cities, to have the programming in place. And one more thing that I wanted to point out. It's like, okay, our bodies, let's say I get in a car accident. I've injured my heart, I've injured my knee, and I've got all kinds of cuts, and I'm hurt. I mean, I can't live without the heart, right? So the first thing we're going to focus on is where the injury is the worst. We're focusing on, right away, we're focusing on what the bleeding, we're focused on dogs and cats that are losing their lives every day. We want to solve for that.
That's not the real problem. The real problem is that we're not providing the access to stop them from coming into the shelter in the first place.
If you're a dog or cat that's ending up in a plastic bag in a dumpster behind the shelter, it's a real problem. And at the same time, we're not saying either or binary opposition. At the same exact time that we're solving for the animals that are being killed today, this week and next week, we're also talking about how to keep them in their homes, how to develop relationships with animal control and humane officers. So you're helping people solve for the problems that they're losing their pets in the first place. It could be a broken gate. It could be access to care. It could be spay neuter, right? None of these things are like either or.
So, Tawny, I want to put this out there. I don't know if you've listened to the show before. I would highly encourage anybody from Best Friends to check out our last episode, because we talked to an organization, very small. What was it, Dan? 16 people?
16 staff members. Yeah, they were
16 staff members.
By the way, let's just plug that they're the agency of the year. So
yes.
There's that too.
Yes.
Shout out El Paso County.
But they're down in Texas right now, and they're working a program to bring veterinarians from Mexico in to work at a low-cost clinic.
Lorelei Combs. She worked with me in Austin, Texas. We're friends. I know her.
Yeah.
She worked together in Austin, and I think it's an amazing program. I love it. We talked about it at the conference.
And I just think that Best Friends has the ability, they have the staffing, they have the funding to be able to bring that wider and bigger into the community and expand on it.
But we're always looking at things like that. That's not off the table. That's the thing. People think it's just about, all we care about is like no kill. That's it. Well, you don't get to no kill without those programs.
True. And that's the thing, right? That's my take, is like, without having, it's like having a flood and not putting up a dam. I think I made that analogy recently, where it's, we have this problem on the front end, and granted, you're doing some great work on the back end, and no one's saying that you're not doing great work. We just have to figure out ways to use words that are going to be inclusive, and that's what gets me. It's almost, and I know you're going to hate this, maybe not actually hate it, but some in your organization, because I know it's almost the same thing that PETA does to get play, to get people to follow them, or to even just start the conversation, whether it's saying that they should rename the bullpen to the arm barn, right? No kill has that same, and people in the organization aren't maybe going to agree with this, and that's okay, but it has that same feel. All we're doing is trying to, like, it's a shock thing. It's like, oh, no kill. And that's, for me, it's like, why are we using something that is divisive in 2024? Like, why can't the language be like, instead of no kill, why can't it be like, what's the little slogan that I have, Bishop? It said, like, no more homeless pets.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Right? What happened to that terminology? And that's a Best Friends slogan.
Right. Yeah. There's two things I wanted to touch on, if that's okay. When I think about us solving for the killing of, sorry, I was just drinking a lot of water. When we talk about solving for the ending of killing, dogs and cats in shelters, I picture it's like a combination on a safe, and all the numbers. You know how you spin the dial and you hit a number, and then you spin it back around, you hit another number. Well, inside that lock, there's these tumblers that are lining up with each other.
Sure.
And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about access to care. We're talking about spay neuter. We're talking about ending the killing today because it matters to that dog or cat that's thrown in a trash bag. Why
do we use the term kill?
I'm coming back to that. Give me 1 second. It's about barrier-free adoptions. It's about robust fostering. Our foster capacity, our capacity is not our shelter. Our capacity is our community. So we're talking about, implementing these programs and policies and procedures that together open that lock. And it's much more complex. So why no kill?
No, why do we use the word kill? No,
I'm coming back.
Hang on, hold on, Tawny. Why do we actually use the word kill? We're not killing. Killing was what they did in the 1800s when they took dogs, they put them in iron cages and dropped them in the East River and drowned them, right? That's killing. We're euthanizing. It's different.
But if an animal's not suffering and you end its life, there's nothing wrong with it except that it hasn't been adopted and it hasn't gone home. There's nothing wrong with it, and you inject it lethally. you're not putting it out of its pain. You're ending its life. But I want to go back to something. When I was in parks, in any other field, health department, police department, fire department, you don't find those euphemisms. You don't find put to sleep. If somebody drowned in my swimming pool on my watch, I didn't say they fell asleep in the deep end. They drowned. They're dead. And so accuracy of language is important when you're defining a discipline in a profession.
That's what I'm saying. That's the whole argument.
But we don't weaponize it. We don't call people killers.
Yes, you do. That's the whole thing. It's being weaponized and used against animal shelters that are trying their fucking hardest not to have to euthanize anything, but they don't have the access to care in their communities to make sure that this overflood doesn't happen in their shelters. That's the problem.
We're not weaponizing that. We don't call people names, but we're not going to say it's euthanasia because it's not true.
I'm not going to say the name, but they publicly said things that, what's the word? Antiquated animal shelters or antiquated animal control officers don't want to change, don't want to get on board with this language. That is weaponizing it. That is using language to make people feel bad or make people feel like they can't do the job. So that's my frustration with it, is if we clean up the language and we're all on board and just say, like, look, our goal, we have one agenda. And I think we can all agree on this, and then we can keep it moving. Our one agenda is to help people and animals, period.
100%. I just think accuracy of language is really important when you're trying to create a discipline. And if we use euphemisms like we're little kids, when I got into animal services, I got right out of park services, and my staff brought me this piece of paper, and I said, "What's this?" I said, "This is the PTS list." I said, "What's PTS?" I said, "Put to sleep list." We're putting them to sleep? They're not going to wake up. What are we, like 5 years old? We're going to humanely end their life. We're not dunking them in the river. We're not electrocuting them. We're not gassing them. We're giving them a lethal injection after sedation. But that's not put to sleep, and that's not euthanasia if they're not suffering. But I didn't say to my staff, "Go kill these dogs today." I would say to my staff, these if it was because of aggression and uninterruptible, unprovoked, I would say we're going to have to humanely end this dog's life. I didn't call him, "Hey, killer, let's go kill some dogs today." We didn't talk like that. This is hard work.
Even if the animal is healthy, is it okay and humane to be keeping that animal in a kennel for who knows how long when there's other animals that are coming in? Now your kennels are getting so full that the staff are not able to give adequate attention and give the proper care to these animals, because now you're putting them in a situation where they are in almost a worse situation because you don't have the staff. So how is it that we're still calling it killing? Because you are still going to euthanize them and humanely do it so that they are not going to suffer and the animals coming in are also not going to suffer. I'm not saying that we need to have a 7-day, 21-day hold. Like, if your facility is not at capacity and you have the staff and the ability to work on getting rescues and things like that, absolutely do what you can to make as many live releases as you can. But going back to that killing, maybe the animal is healthy, but it's been there, and you are going to make it harder on that animal and every other animal because you don't have the staff or the ability or even the vet care. How many shelters out there don't even have the access to vet care? Like, not even just our community members, but our shelters also don't have it.
Do you want me to answer your question? Because you all are making a lot of statements, and I just want to I want to be able to dialogue with you. So you started off, you asked me a question in the beginning, Ashlee. You said, how is it about, you've got all these animals coming in, and then other animals need space, but this animal's there, and it doesn't have a live outcome. One of the things is that I think the important thing maybe we could discuss a little bit is we call it, even we talked about language and the importance of accurate language. We call it a shelter. Is it really? And my point is that I believe one of the most dangerous places for dogs or cats in our country, one of the most dangerous places, because there's others, is an animal shelter, because it's a closed environment where you can get the spread of disease and infection, and they can get sick. And they can also, particularly dogs, if they're a big dog, right, do something dumb and end up losing their life. Just being afraid and scared, do something behaviorally to be deemed unadoptable, that they would not normally do in a home. If they were in a loving home and sitting on a sofa, laying on a bed, watching football with their family, put them in that kennel and that cacophonous environment that smells like cleaners and all the hormones that are firing off. It's a scary place to be. And so I think animal shelters are this temporary emergency housing for animals. But our system's broken. We haven't yet fixed it. And so we've got animal shelters at capacity, particularly after the disruption of the pandemic. That disrupted everything.
They were at capacity long before that.
They did.
Yeah,
they did.
I mean,
but
it didn't help. It didn't help.
Yeah, and it didn't help at all. It was a disruption that put businesses under, really affected the hospitality industry. Restaurants closed several days a week. It also affected animal shelters. So what I wanted to come back to, what you were saying, Ashlee, and then I'll be quiet, is the system has to be a life-flowing system, like a life-saving system. There has to be, the life-saving starts in the backyard, the front yard, the house, the street, before the shelter door. There's that whole set of circumstances that we can address before the front door. And then in the front door, when they're in our system, because there's no other choice for them, that's where they have to be. There's all these other programs and policies that need to be in sync with each other, because they don't need to be sitting there for 21 days or whatever time. It's a scary place for them, and it's a hard place for humans. We ask pet lovers to do the unthinkable sometimes. Like when you hire an employee, you're like, do you like pets? It's like, oh, I love bunnies and I rescue turtles. And okay, well, on Friday, we're going to make room for other animals. I mean, it's like, think about the human toll on an animal lover, right?
I think that's what Bishop was kind of saying is like,
oh, yeah.
We have let's say you have a shelter with 200 animals and you only have 3 animal care attendants, right? Like that strain that goes on them. And I think we could argue that, I was going to say to death, but that's probably not a good pun here. We could argue that though. And here's where really I want to go. Here's where I want to go, because I like that there was some passion and emotion leading up to this. But how can best friends bridge the gap or create an environment to bring on people to mend relationships or create new relationships with people that may say, I don't want to really do business with them because of the terminology and language or their ideology. How do we, and I use that term we, because I might be strong worded about my feels of terminology, but I want to know how we can create a better environment to help people and animals by utilizing best friends services. Yeah.
I think the conversations are important. Just us talking today. I think that we keep talking. I think it's hard work sometimes, because sometimes it feels uncomfortable, right? I think that we keep talking and we just keep communicating with each other. It's really easy to misunderstand somebody or not like them when you don't talk to them. It's harder to be an enemy of somebody when you actually break bread together, have coffee together. I remember, can I just give it a quick example? When I went to Austin, when I went to Austin, Texas, I don't want to be a hypocrite. A second ago, I'm like, Ashlee, let me answer. And then I turn around and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. So I can see your face going. No, you didn't do that. You're kind of.
Part of it's just it doesn't move correctly. So.
Oh, I'm not cracking on your face. I'm cracking on me.
Honestly, though, her nickname really quick, I found it. It's Miss Crawley, and she's an iguana from Sing, the movie Sing. So that's Ashlee's nickname, Miss Crawley.
Don't lick your eye.
Don't lick it.
So when I came to Austin, I was the chief animal services officer, and Austin Pets Alive and Austin Animal Center did not talk to each other, but they needed each other. They needed to be partners in concert, right? And so once a month, the leaders and the veterinarians, the vets hated each other. Hate's too strong a word. Despise, I don't disliked, no respect. So we started like communicating more. And we actually had lunch together. I'd bring in lunch and we'd sit around a table and eat. Now, I'm not saying it was magic and like I'm just like some wizard. But things got better. Communication got better. There still was deep-seated mistrust because the veterinarians there at the animal center really felt, no kill pushed upon them. It wasn't something that they, bought into, but some of them did. And it's funny because, well, it just was interesting to see the relationships kind of mend and at least some civility there. I'm not saying there wasn't disagreements and perfection. So I asked
to be part of a roundtable or a panel discussion at your next annual training as a panel to bring different views. And here's what I think, because like you just said, there may be hard discussions, but it's discussions that are going to create an environment that people all understand the perspectives of each other. And so I feel like, and this could be answered in the discussion, I feel like best friends is so married to the identity of using that terminology that the egos that are involved, and I'll say that because it's fair to say there's no other reason why we wouldn't be so married to it. It's our ID. I'm not saying that it's like a super ego or anything of that nature. It's just our ego. It's what we identify with. Our egos are so, I would say, entrenched in the idea of doing this work that there is no room for change at this point. And when there is, I want to make sure that, and when I say room for change, I'm just only talking about the terminology, only talking about using language like save them all and no kill. That's all I'm talking about. The programs that you offer, the opportunities that you give to communities that may not have access to care by allowing shelters to create programs that are going to be embedded in their shelters that work for them. I couldn't be happier for stuff like that. I think that's the direction. If somebody said, how like you play this game, like when the Powerball is like 500 million or 100 million or whatever, or a billion, because it gets to a billion. And they're always like, what's the first thing you would do? And everybody's like, I'd buy a fucking boat. I'd buy a mansion. I'd buy an airplane. I tell you right now what I would do is I would start centers across this country that are low cost, no cost for access to care for animals. I guarantee you that's the first place that I would go with my money outside of like the smart thing to like invest in such. But as far as like having a purpose in this world, it would be there. It would be starting programs that children could get veterinary scholarships, right? So they could be the next shelter vets that we need in this country. Large animal. I talk to people in the equine world, the large animal world, the livestock world. They're hurting just as much as the shelter world. So I think as we continue to grow and find ways to have these hard discussions, I want to advocate, but I also want to advocate for best friends in a way that is not just one-sided. And I have to do that in a way that it's like that constructive criticism. I think you're doing great work. And I think as we continue to move forward, you will get more support if you admit, not you specifically, Tawny, but if you as an organization admit, hey, the language that we use, just like these NFL teams or baseball teams, hey, we used to be called the Redskins, but that was insulting. That was divisive. So we're going to change our name to the Commanders, right? So it's the same concept. I just think that we're not there yet. And I hope that we get there because I want to continue to support best friends. I do. I really do. Though I may be like the loudest voice and there may be like a pin the tail on a donkey thing with my face on it at the next annual training.
I have ideas now.
Throw the dart at Dan. I want to support, but I want to support in a way that is like we all can be on the same page.
Yeah, I would love that too. One of the things that you have mentioned a couple of times that I really believe strongly is that the veterinarian profession too is going to need a major shift because a lot of friends are veterinarians and I mean, they're struggling to even make money. Some of people with their own practices and they're working outside of their own practice just to keep the practice going. So I have a lot of friends in that field, and it's, their costs are high, their insurances are high, they come out of school, use heavily in debt. I kind of feel like the whole veterinarian field needs to also change. Like, for instance, lawyers do pro bono work. It's part of their ethic, their professional ethic. Doctors do charitable pro bono work, and it's not the same language for doctors and dentists, but they do charitable work as part of their ethic and their profession. And so, I feel bad, veterinarians, they've got to pay their bills. They've got to try to run a business. It's, everybody thinks that veterinarians charge too much money. You hear people talk about it all the time. They've got to cover their bills. I feel like we just need a makeover in that profession where they can still make a living and pay off their schooling debts and other things, but they're more part of the fabric of the community that can help with this access to care.
Absolutely. Because it's that One Health model. I agree. I think that there needs to be funding from our government to support the animal health and welfare in this country. Like, I think that should be stuff that, because HSUS lobbies all the time.
Yep.
Like, they should lobby for access to care for health of our animals, because the health of our animals is a reflection of the health of our community. We know that.
Well, look at our own human healthcare system's pretty broken.
It is.
I'd like to take some of the best practices in Europe that we've heard about and seen, and like do the same thing for animals and people. Mm-hmm. Access, right? Access to care. We're not trying to run veterinarians out of business. We want to respect the profession. It's an important profession. But even same thing with doctors. I mean, our healthcare system for humans needs a lot of work. But I totally agree that the government, and again, I also think nonprofits, I really think the answer is in a multidiscipline approach, because we know pets complete families. We know they stave off loneliness and depression. They help with anxiety. They connect us socially, and they contribute to our economy. I mean, come on. My next TEDx talk is going to be making a business case for ending the killing of pets. And I'm being evocative intentionally, evocative, in that that it's bad business to not have a life-saving animal shelter in your community. Starting with life first, not death first, life first, and death only if you've tried every other option.
So let me ask you about this acronym, SMART. Have you ever heard of it?
I have, after following you on LinkedIn.
What are your thoughts? Saving the majority of animals with responsible treatment. Or smart shelters. Why can't we use that? Because that's essentially what you're doing. You're just using different language. It's essentially what you're doing. You're being responsible by making sure there's no animals that are suffering through behavioral or health issues, right? The majority, right? We're being responsible to the community. We're being responsible to the animals. Like, I just don't understand what the hang up is.
I don't want to hang up.
So it sounds like Best Friends just changed their slogan, baby. Let's go. Best Friends. They're now smart.
I don't have an issue with saving the majority of animals with responsible treatment. My majority is pretty high, though. I'm not going to lie to you. My majority's.
It's okay. It's not an arbitrary number.
Well, it's not a number, and it's not. The way I look at all of this is, you guys have been doing this for so long, and we looking ahead to 2025. I highly doubt we're going to get there to your guys' standards, and so there's a time for change. Right? Everything has to be constantly changing, or we're literally going to get nowhere, like the animal welfare profession is right now. We're still back in the 80s, where the majority of areas are not caring about certain types of animals, etc., because they have not allowed for change. And so I guess what we're looking to do is say, hey, Best Friends, can you accept some change? The community is speaking to you. This is not even just animal welfare people speaking to you, but the community members are speaking to you and saying, well, we no kill. Oh, we can't kill anything. And so we're asking for a change because that's the only way to grow and to continue on our path to making the world a better place for animals and humans.
Could you imagine, Tawny, if I worked for Best Friends and how loud and boisterous?
You'd have to get hired, Dan. You would not get hired.
Hold on. Let me paint this picture. I know people are probably laughing listening to this, but like from the aspects of how much I champion certain things, right? Like the reason I say that is like, if we can just meet in the middle and use different terminology, like we've had your, Best Friends on now 4 or 5 times on the program because I appreciate the work that you say that we're doing in communities by providing shelters and bedded programs, right? To figure out ways for grants. Scott Giacopo. I literally, without even permission, because that's sometimes what I do. I basically was at a training. I was like, who doesn't have microchip scanners? Because I heard Best Friends gives them away for free. And there was like 6 people like, we don't have them. So I was like, Scott, I don't know if you can help, but these 6 people said they don't have microchip scanners. Guess what he did? He sent them all microchip scanners.
Right. Well, that's what we do.
That's what I'm saying. And so
we don't hate Best Friends.
Yeah. My point is, for those of you that made it 57 minutes into this program, my point is, though we have differing views and there's a lot of emotion because I'm so, like, I love the work that we do. Like, this is my life's work. And I mean that sincerely. Mm-hmm. And I just want to find a way to continue to work together. As you go back in time, and we started the program with boats and horses. There's this guy by the name of Henry Berg. Henry Berg founded the ASPCA. He also was friends with another guy called George Thorndike Angel, who started the MSPCA. They often would travel around, and they even worked with, it's upside down. There it is. They often also worked with Caroline Earl White. So these 3 major players in our profession back in the 1800s, though I'm sure had some differing views on certain things, also had a common interest. And our common interest on the show, in our profession, is to help people and help animals. And I think we can continue to get there. I just want to find a way, Tawny, my goal, and maybe you can help us end on this note, is how do we find a way that I can disagree with the terminology, but still be a supporter and still be somebody that gets along with the agency?
Oh, I think you can, and I think you are. I don't think we're going to come off as save them all or no kill. It's part of the fabric of who we are. We believe that we can save them all. We're not trying to end euthanasia, but the animals that don't need, there's not a public safety issue, and there's not a suffering at the end of their life. We can't alleviate suffering. Any of those other animals losing their lives, those are the ones when we say save them all. That's what we're talking about. And we're not trying to end euthanasia. We're trying to end killing. So we're not going to be changing that. I can't, I'm not the board of directors. I'm not the senior leadership or the CEO, but I am in a leadership position. And I don't think it's to be contrary or to be adversarial or try and not have bridges between organizations and people. For us, it's something we very much believe in. And, we're not alone. I know you said, that the community's asking this of us. There are just thousands of people around the United States that believe that we can end the killing of dogs and cats in animal shelters. And the community, I think about social change, marriage equality, okay? The people that just argued about it were politicians and some religious leaders. At the center of social change, you find people arguing about language and the whole, everything about it. But the community didn't care. They like marriage equality. They're like, particularly younger people. They're like, we don't care who you marry. Just don't impose your views on me. Have a good life. Let's go on to the next thing that's vexing us. But, or if you look at women, the right to vote, civil rights, at the center of it was all the energy and the heat and the arguing and the dissension. But the other community around us had embraced it. The community really doesn't care what we call it. They just expect that if an animal ends up in the shelter, she went away.
It's okay. We can still talk.
Was that something I said?
No, it probably. Sometimes our internet gets funky.
Wonky.
So,
yeah, I think the community just expects that the animal shelter, animal control is doing the very best. That if an animal ends up there, it doesn't have an expiration date. It's not a carton of milk. That it's going to be a robust adoption program, robust foster program, return to owner program, transfer to rescue, transport to rescue. That whole menu of life-saving that creates that life-saving flow through the shelter. We're not talking about them living in cages and crates and sitting in their own poop and not having a quality of life. It's about get them in, get them out, keep them moving. And we're not there yet. We're working on it.
And so that's the thing too, Tawny, is I'm in full support of all of that, right? I talk about, and I'm not even going to ask the question. I'll just talk about it for myself. I don't even eat animals or anything that comes from an animal, right? So I'm a step ahead. I'm a step ahead of a lot of people in your agency that I know of that, though they may have to eat a certain way at conferences or to get their per diem or reimbursed, that they still, that's a whole nother world of animals being killed. Right. And so when we talk about the programs that you're offering and we talk about what we're doing to really help the community, I'm super supportive of it. I just want to find a way to, I don't know if maybe there'll never be a time that they change the language. Maybe there'll be a time that it'll be we save them all versus save them. I don't know. I don't know. What I can say is, as we succession plan for our future, my number one goal is to find ways to provide care in our communities for the people and animals. And I think that starts with organizations just like yours, just like ASPCA, just like the Humane Society of the United States, just like other large organizations that can figure out ways to embed themselves in the communities to ensure that we're taking the steps to help the future of our animals, right? And that's where we need to be.
Well, I'm really happy that you had me on today, having this civil discourse, spirited discussion. It's good to know you and Ashlee both. I just want to thank you for having me on, and we've got the voiceless are counting on us, and we can do it. We got to pull together. I know that we can create a life-saving nation. She's back.
She's back.
Sorry about that.
Welcome back, Bishop.
I started crying and gnashing my teeth, and I was like, I'm not talking to you, Daniel. Where's Ashlee?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Tawny, for really coming on and talking about just your side, your programs. And I do appreciate your, it's not arrogant. You're not, by no means are you arrogant. If anybody's arrogant, it's me. But I appreciate your stick-to-itiveness.
What is your dog staring at the window?
I don't know.
Wall?
Is that a word, stick-to-itiveness?
Well, it's a dedication.
I believe that.
I like stick-to-itiveness.
I believe. I believe
that's a T-shirt.
Yeah, stick-to-itiveness. Somebody's stick-to-itiveness to me. Hey, chill. I'm on the airport. I appreciate the fact that you're like, this is what we do. This is what we're going to continue to do. We'll have those hard discussions, but no matter what, we're still like, it's just like us. Let's not like you're coming on saying, Daniel, stop saying the opposite, that we shouldn't use this language. So I appreciate you also saying that this is your view. You're going to stick to your view, but we can still get along. And that's what my hope is. So as I talked about in the beginning, whether it was Paula, whether it's Brent, whether it's Scott, people that I've had conversations with, other people at conferences, like I hope that, like, because I can see beyond the ego aspect of it all. I can see beyond the identity of it all. I know that everybody involved is just trying to do their best. I just wish that we could all agree. That the language isn't the best language. That's all. That's all I'll say.
Well, see, you know what's going to be cool in our lifetime? When we don't even have to worry about it because dogs and cats aren't being killed in shelters.
Yeah,
and there's access to care, and the people are spaying and neutering, and
there it is.
And there's adoptions, and there's fosters, and there's people that they can help work through. I mean, we've got discriminatory housing. When you go to, and I know we're trying to wrap this up, but we go to rent a house.
Can't have a dog.
Right, you can't have a dog, but you can have a microwave. You can have a gun. You can have a motorcycle. Those are considered personal property under the law. Pets, even though they're our friends and our family, they're considered under the law personal property. It's discriminatory practices because it disproportionately affects people that are already socially vulnerable.
We had a good episode several episodes ago with the ASPCA that were lobbying in Colorado to end that, to make that illegal for landlords and such. And so we have to continue that. Bishop, you got anything before we wrap it up? I know you left and came back abruptly.
She went and got a latte. No, it's okay.
No, I think that this was a good discussion. I think it's a discussion to continue having. And, you know, Dan and I are always here to talk to best friends, anybody that wants to come back on, come back on, whatever. Like,
thank you.
I also want to do a best friends episode where we actually don't talk at all about the language. Seriously. So if anybody in any program that's listening that wants to come on and just talk about what programs are available,
that'd be cool.
Which means Dan can't talk.
I promise, hands up. I promise that if anybody from the organization does just want to come on and talk about some of the embedded programs, talk about the animal control related programs, talk about the annual training that's coming up next year, like whatever it is that is a program that is actually not this. We don't always have to do this. We don't have to go in circles about the terms. I'm happy to support that as well. I think, like you said earlier, Tawny, it's like sometimes when we just get an opportunity to sit down and meet and talk, we know that we all have similar agendas. And I think that shows. I think we all want to make sure that our community is healthy.
Yeah, that would be great. I know I have a couple of colleagues that would love to talk to you about some of the programming, boots on the ground work we're doing around the country. Super excited about it. So thank you.
Do it.
You all have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Whatever you celebrate, may you have all that you need.
Oh,
thank you. You too.
So, that's very nice of you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, happy holidays because we're right there. We're close.
That's right.
Well, as always, we appreciate you as our guest. We appreciate our listeners. Remember to like, share, rate the podcast. You can follow it on Spotify. You can check us out on YouTube as well. If you want to see the video, just put in the Animal Control Report or Keep It Humane. And Bishop?
Let's keep it
humane.
Humane.
All right.